you about the unknown and the unidentified flying object?
Oh, yes, we discussed it at every conference that we had with the military, and they never were able to make me a concrete report on.
Do you have anything on the subject, sir?
No, I haven't had anything on the subject, and there's always things like that going on. The flying saucers, and we've had other things, you know.
For years, the world has seen reality distorted, facts manipulated, and truth hidden. But there's even more to the story than anyone has ever suspected, because no one has been able to see the whole picture. Until now.
G'day friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Unexplained Rundown. I'm your host, Grant Levac, and if you found this channel intentionally, then like me, you're intrigued by the unexplained mysteries of this mortal coil of ours, and you crave to know what's real and what's not. Now, my apologies up front. I'm sounding a little foghorny today because I'm got a bad bout of the man flu. The little one picked something up in daycare and has passed it on. So I've got that deep 1-800 voice. I should probably be a good what's that guy's name that does the movie trailer voiceovers? In a time, in a land before time, in a dream, in a world. So I don't think I'll be doing the whole show like that, but depending on how long we go, it might just morph into that anyway. So look, thank you all for taking some time out of your morning if you're down under, or overseas if you're joining. It's your evening over there. Welcome. See, we've got some good friends in the chat. Alien Girl, Amy, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Lovely taking some time into your night on a Friday on your side to join. For those of you watching, if you haven't seen Alien Girl's content, Alien Girl 111, do check her out on YouTube. Does a really cool morning show. Wake up early with coffee, or if you're down under, it's late at night, so sometimes I'm not able to join, but does some really cool daily coverage of all the latest news and developments on the UAP topic. We got Jimmy in the house. Jimmy, welcome, my friend. Thanks for taking some time out of your Saturday to join. It's good to be with you as always, and other friends as they come, I'll show comments on the screen. So you're very, very true there, Jimmy. That's the only benefit of man flu, the deep baritone voice, indeed. So look, if you are new to the show, please feel free to continue to help it grow. Hit that like button, share, subscribe. This is a really, really special milestone show for the Unexplained Rundown. I'm really excited to share with you and celebrate a milestone that I didn't anticipate that we would reach for the show. So it's a pretty cool, fun day, and hopefully you'll stay with me to celebrate as we go through. So that's probably a good starting point. What is the milestone? What are we celebrating? Well, only a few days ago, the Unexplained Rundown passed 3,000 subscribers on YouTube. So I'm stoked that so many people have decided to support the show and have enjoyed the content and value the work that I do in an Australian context, to kind of try and better understand what is Australia doing about UAP, or rather not doing about UAP, because they haven't been doing a whole lot since 1996, when they last investigated the UAP UFO topic. That wasn't the only milestone, though. About a week ago, passed another milestone. For those of you that follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, we surpassed 3,500 followers. So, again, for those of you that follow me on Twitter and value the information that I put out there, I truly appreciate you guys following me and all the feedback and positive support and encouragement you give me. It actually really helps drive, motivate me and keep me going to find answers to questions that intrigue me and hopefully intrigue you as well. So I thought we'd do something a little bit different for the show. We kind of break it up into some segments, and I mean, you see a few other people are joining. Colin, always good to see you, my friend. Thank you for taking some time out of your day across the pond in New Zealand to join. Alien Girl, thank you so very much. You didn't need to do that, my friend. Super Sticker 199, really appreciate that. Lovely. Thank you for your support, and thank you for the recognition of reaching 3K. It's might seem pretty small, but for me, I again never thought we would get that level of support and viewership. So it's I'm feeling pretty chuffed. So thanks, Jimmy. I really appreciate that. So what I thought we'd do is we'd kind of break the show up a little bit into some segments. And so what I thought I'll do, I'll share my screen so you can see. What we do is start with a bit of a rundown. So kind of a recap of some of the local news coverage on the UAP topic in an Australian context over the last 4 weeks, really, since I did my last live stream, which was about a month back, as well as just review some of the things that have been happening on the topic in the community. So good starting point is actually Australian researcher James Rigney flagged this for me. So kudos to you, James, for sharing this with me. This is actually a news article from a couple of months back, actually, after David Grusch came out with his bombshell interview with Ross Coulthart on News Nation. It's actually a really interesting article that was published by the University of Queensland in Australia, of all places. So this was an op-ed piece in what they call their Contact magazine. It's kind of like a digital magazine that they provide to alumni of the university and the university community. And I found it really interesting that a doctor who is obviously a tutor at the school, so Dr. Adam Dodd, who's in the School of Communications and Arts, he authored this opinion piece on basically, that was the title of the article: Alien Spacecraft Allegations Suggest the Pentagon Has Approved Conspiracy Theories About Itself. So talking about pretty much everything that had happened as of that date back in June with the David Grusch story. And it's a really, really interesting read. If you want to have a look at it, feel free. The link is in the description below. But what I found really interesting about Dr. Adam Dodd, and again, kudos to James Rigney for flagging this article with me, that Dr. Adam Dodd has actually authored previously some journal articles. So if we come on down to journal articles, you'll see in 2018, he authored a journal article in journal Astropolitics, Strategic Ignorance and the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, critiquing the discursive segregation of UFOs from scientific inquiry. That wasn't the only journal article that he authored. Back earlier still, back in 1999, in the Journal of Media and Culture, Making It Unpopular, the CIA and UFOs in Popular Culture. So really, really interesting that there is someone close homegrown in Australia that is obviously keen to report on the UAP topic. And what I really enjoyed about the article that Dr. Adam Dodd authored was it was stigma free. It was kind of a serious snapshot of the facts as we knew them at the time in June on everything that happened. So I'd encourage you to have a look at it if you're interested. Again, really encouraging to see someone like Dr. Adam Dodd in the academic community taking the topic seriously and I guess sharing information about what's going on in the US with the younger generation of today. So exposing them to the topic and what's going on. So really, really interesting article. So feel free to have a look. So let's now segue into another piece of news that is now also close to home. So we know that not long ago, on the 14th of September, NASA released its highly anticipated UAP independent study report, and due to, I guess, public pressure, revealed the identity of its all-new director of UAP research, which we now know is a gentleman by the name of Mark McInerney. McInerney, I think is how I pronounce it. Could be wrong. But so, some of the homegrown media, the legacy media back home, Australia, took notice of the release of NASA's UAP independent study report. And so I'm going to show you a clip to kind of give you a sense as to, unfortunately, how the legacy media in Australia has, unfortunately, for far too long treated this topic. So this was a segment, I think the same day, or it might have been the following day, on the 15th of September, that the breakfast show Sunrise on the 7 Network put out. And see if you can spot where it is laden with ridicule and stigma.
A report into hundreds of UFO sightings has just been released, and it has some surprises.
Ooh, live to US correspondent Tim Lester. Tim, a team of experts has looked at all the evidence. So, what did they find?
Well, Shervo, Nat, this is NASA saying that they really do want to be the ones that apply science and not all of the speculation and sensationalism that we've seen over past decades for UFOs. So they've gone in with a team of 16 and spent a year studying all of the public evidence that they can get their hands on UFOs. And after it all, they say they cannot rule out an extraterrestrial factor in all of this. They do say, though, that the extraterrestrial question ought to be a conclusion of last resort. Here's Bill Nelson, the administrator of NASA, on the findings.
The top takeaway from the study is that there is a lot more to learn. The NASA independent study team did not find any evidence that UAP have an extraterrestrial origin. But we don't know what these UAP are.
Nelson himself says he thinks that there actually is other life out in the universe somewhere. He's also appointed now an investigator into UFOs inside NASA, but won't say who, because he says if that was known publicly, their job would be that much harder. Guys?
The answers are still out there somewhere, Tim.
Yes, like a famous TV show said. Wow, what comes after the but is fascinating. If NASA can't work it out.
But we still don't know what they are.
Yeah, and they're not ruling it out.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
Aliens, are they amongst us?
Oh, you can just, it groans me. It shits me to tears every time they play the bloody X-Files theme during the entire segment. And then they just take the piss out of it at the very end. And I know that there is potential copyright on that news article, but I wanted to, that report, I just wanted to show it so you have a sense as to, the pretty pathetic effort being taken by the legacy media here in Australia still. They're just not taking the topic seriously. And what really irks me with Sunrise and these breakfast shows, they often get elected representatives like the Australian Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister for Defence, Richard Marles, on the show, asking them questions about other important topics that everyday Australians care about. So it's just really unfortunate that they're just not taking this topic seriously when they could be asking some really pertinent and serious questions of the Australian Department of Defence, like, why isn't Australia taking the topic seriously? Why didn't Australia attend the Five Eyes Forum on UAP? So it's just really, really frustrating. And there are, obviously I display that for fair dealings, fair use to try and educate the public on the position that the legacy media is taking on the UAP topic. But it's really, really frustrating. There are some encouraging, media outlets that are reporting, I would say, not favorably is not the word, but I would say they're doing their due diligence in covering the topic from a factual perspective. They're not, adding personal opinion or stigma or ridicule to it. They're just reporting the facts as we know them at the time. So hopefully that, you'll get to see more and more, media outlets starting to cover this topic a little bit more seriously. So let's move to another bit of homegrown news. and I'll just pull this up for us so it's on screen. There we go. So I obviously reached out. I tweeted at Sunrise, putting them kind of on blast after they aired that segment, just saying, it's great that you're covering the topic, but please get off your ass and do your due diligence and ask some important questions of defense leadership and those that we elect into positions of authority. Yet to ever see any responses from any of the legacy media outlets like Sunrise, following emails, letters that I've sent, and so on. So I suspect they're just ignoring a lot of folks, genuine concerns and seriousness that they're taking on the topic. So let's move on to another piece of recent news. So my good friend Roger Stankovic recently was able to secure a double-page spread in the Saturday edition of the Daily Telegraph back on the 16th of September. I've actually added a link in the description below to Roger's tweet, so you can actually, if you want to zoom in and kind of read the article, it's a really, really good read. Again, Roger provided the journalists with some really, good factual information and kind of hitting home that, why isn't Australia taking this topic seriously as well? You can see at the bottom right of screen there, the Australian Senator Peter Whish-Wilson, Senator for Tasmania, the only Australian senator to date to take the topic seriously. He is mentioned in the article, and Roger provides some good context for the journalist. So do have a read of that as well if you're interested to check it out. So let's now move on to something that is probably a little bit more recent, and that is Yes Theory's documentary on David Grusch. I'd be interested to learn from those of you that are joining in the chat how many of you have seen it and what your thoughts were. So feel free to pop your comments in the chat. In the interim, I feel your pain, everyone. Yes, for F's sake, indeed, on the X-Files being played every single time. And yes, we are using that, playing that for fair use. So hopefully we don't get a copyright strike for that. So yeah, let me know in the comments and chat below what you thought of the David Grusch documentary. I found it to be really an interesting viewing because both the Yes Theory and Jesse Michaels' American Alchemy, I think they did a really good job of humanizing David Grusch. It was good to see David Grusch out of a suit, not talking so formally in a congressional setting or in an interview setting, just to see him kind of shoot the shit with folks out in everyday life. So it was a really interesting documentary. I quite enjoyed it. Certainly leaves a lot more questions unanswered, but hopefully we'll get some more clarity and he'll be able to reveal more information over time. So what I really found interesting, though, in Yes Theory's documentary on David Grusch was towards the back third of the documentary, there was a meeting with the filmmakers, had a meeting with Dr. Gary Nolan. And kudos to my fellow Aussie, Scott Manning, for giving me a heads up on this on social media. He kind of credit to him for flagging this with me. So this is a clip from the documentary because it pertains specifically to what we're all interested in, which is UAP, UFO in an Australian context. So have a look.
Need to drop molten metal. I don't know. So when you look at that, or you look at another one, this is from somebody in Australia, which is another metal that dropped off of something. Wow. And he has, I have big chunks of it. It's like, he says, this just, it has a story behind it that is worth, follow up. Wow. And so, okay, well, that's not the same as that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Variety.
So, and there's another one that I've got, which is from here in California. And so here you have 3 or 4 different things that appear to drop something. They have a good story behind them. And so what's the similarities? What's the difference?
What is it?
I don't know yet. And again, I'm not going to say this proves anything.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say, here's the range of things that people have, and here's the stories that go look in the appendices about what the details of the story, and here's what they're made of.
Whoa! So metal debris from Australia, and I was incredibly fascinated to learn that. So, UAP Aotearoa materials from Jacques Vallée mostly, but it would be really interesting to get some more details from Dr. Gary Nolan on that, because I think we would all be fascinated to learn, where in Australia those materials were recovered, when they were recovered, what was the story behind the recovery, and so on. I know that Bill Chalker has documented, great legendary veteran researcher who I've had the pleasure and privilege of learning from directly. He's done a lot of research on a lot of the alleged crash retrievals in Australia and alleged UAP crashes. So I'd be interested to learn the provenance behind that metal debris that Dr. Gary Nolan has in his possession, because it'd be very fascinating to learn a little bit more about it. Todd T, thanks for joining. You watched the Jesse Michaels video and found it quite good. I agree with you on that front. It was definitely well put together. And yes, indeed, Zane, credit Scott Manning. Nolan was told to not to reveal case with Oz debris. Interesting. I wonder why that's the case, because in that clip, you heard Dr. Gary Nolan say to the documentary filmmakers, follow up. So it sounds like it's something worth them investing. Maybe they are investing their time, energy, and effort to look into that particular case. But yeah, interesting. I would certainly love to learn a lot more about it. And we have a good friend Encounters Down Under podcast. Great to see you here. Thanks for joining, Anthony. Is the process analysis results being presented publicly, though? It's a good question. What is to come of all of the analysis and results of those bits of debris that Dr. Nolan is examining? Scott Manning had reached out to Gary. Fantastic. Well, it's great to know. It's really good that you point that out, Zane, because I had tried my best to engage Dr. Gary Nolan after that revelation, and I put a tweet out there saying, fascinating to hear that you've got some metal debris that hails from Australia. We, myself and my fellow Aussies, would love to learn more. And to my surprise, that tweet had some huge engagement, like 43,500 views. But Dr. Nolan doesn't follow me on Twitter or X, which is perfectly fine. I know that he's got his day job, so he's got many other things to worry about. But it's wonderful that there are people like Scott Manning that have engagement with Dr. Gary Nolan, so they can find out more information and make it available to us interested Aussies back home. So that's probably a good segue also to talk about, while we're on the topic of Gary Nolan. Let's transition to what he is doing outside of his work, his day-to-day job at Stanford University, and we'll talk a little bit about his nonprofit that he has founded called the Sol Foundation. Now, he announced the establishment, or that he had founded, or was in the process of establishing the Sol Foundation at, I believe it was the SALT conference a couple of months back. And what is really interesting about the Sol Foundation's website, and it's a pretty cool site. It gives you a good sense as to what their mission is and so on, why they're established, what they're trying to achieve. But it's really in the About section that got me interested, because if you go to the About page and you come on down to under the Sol's work and mission, point number 2 is the one that I found interesting: to provide reliable, cutting-edge advisory research to the United States and other national governments, as well as corporate clients. Sol will establish itself as and remain the foremost think tank on UAP, the source of the most informed and insightful policy recommendations available. That's significant for us, because we know that Australia has been completely disengaged on this topic. They don't want to touch it. They just move along, folks, nothing to see here, which is really unfortunate. And it's just surprising that Australia is so out of step with our strongest ally and Five Eyes partner, AUKUS partner, the United States, who we know have been taking this topic seriously now for several years since the release of the bombshell New York Times articles in 2017, and it's now got strong bipartisan support. So I was really interested to learn, how does the Sol Foundation plan to facilitate some greater engagement with national governments like other member countries of the Five Eyes, the UK, Australia, even New Zealand. The UK and Australia have been completely mum, have been really totally silent on the UAP topic. They really just don't want to touch it. So, following on from that revelation, I put that tweet out in, when was it? It was in May. And a few days after, I thought, well, I'll give it another shot. I'll see if I can ask a question of Gary Nolan and get him to provide a little bit more information about how the Sol Foundation plans to facilitate great engagement. And obviously, fair enough, he didn't respond. But and that's not to call Dr. Gary Nolan out at all. This is really again to hit home to you folks and those that are in the chat, like. Zane, it's really great that you've mentioned that good fellow Aussie Scott Manning has existing engagement with Dr. Gary Nolan. So if you have a relationship with Dr. Gary Nolan, it's a really interesting question that I would like to, and I imagine others would love to learn more about. So because I'm just an everyday dude. I don't have a lot of folks, or that many folks follow me. So, but there are others out there that have an existing relationship with folks that are in the know. It would certainly be very interesting to learn how the Sol Foundation plans to facilitate that greater engagement, not just at home in the United States with the United States government, but internationally as well. And what's also really interesting about the Sol Foundation, if you haven't had a look at their website, the link is in the description below. They've actually got a really, really interesting and I would say exciting event around the corner. The first ever, the inaugural annual symposium of the Sol Foundation. It's scheduled to take place at Stanford University in mid-November. And if you look at the cast of speakers, the lineup of speakers that Dr. Gary Nolan has been able to secure for this symposium, this conference, is really, really impressive. Obviously, Dr. Gary Nolan and Peter Scarfish. You've also got Dr. Eric Davis. We haven't heard from him in a long time. Works with the Aerospace Corporation, kind of under a media gag, not to ever talk about UAP. So it'd be really interesting to learn if there are folks that are privileged enough to attend that conference, what he's going to be talking about. Dr. Timothy Gallaudet, Rear Admiral, U.S. retired. He's with the obviously doing some good work with the Americans for Safer Aerospace. We know our good friend Dr. Avi Loeb of the Galileo Project, Leslie Kane, David Grusch's lawyer, former Inspector General Charles McCulloch III, Christopher Mellon. You've got Diana Walsh-Pasulka, who's recently been appointed to the board of the Sol Foundation. Dr. Jacques Vallée. Holy crap. So this is the cream of the crop of people that have been investing a lot of their time, energy, effort to research this subject for many, many years, if not many, many decades, like Dr. Jacques Vallée. So it'd certainly be very interesting to learn what comes of that symposium. And I know that there are tickets that are available. I mean, it looks like it's in-person attendances by invitation only, but looks like there'll be media information that will be available after the event. So an interesting one to watch. Hopefully we'll hear a little bit more about that after it has taken place. So that's pretty much a bit of a rundown of what's been happening at home and what I found to be quite interesting abroad. If we now let's pivot and we'll have a look at, bring up my slide again. Let's just see. So we'll have a look at what's ahead. Some of the things that are up and coming, event-wise in Australia, because we don't often hear about, those of us at home that follow the topic, we don't really often hear about a lot of events that are happening at home. So I thought this would be a good opportunity just to kind of flag for you, those that are hail from down under, what lies ahead. Let's just have a look at some of the comments that have come through. Yes, indeed, Todd T. Wow, that's quite a lineup. Looking forward to the video. Hopefully, it's recorded and they put out a publicly available record of the conference, because it would be some great speaking engagements to be able to for the general public to be able to watch. And if you read about their mission, part of the mission of the Soul Foundation is to help educate and inform the public as well. So you would want to hope that there will be some sort of coverage of that event. Awesome lineup indeed. Absolutely. So let's have a look at some of the things that are around the corner. So I had found out about this event actually around about the time that I was investigating the Westall incident. The Westall flying saucer incident of the 6th of April, 1966. Shane Ryan, who's been the kind of the lead, the primary researcher on the Westall incident for many, many years, I found out through him that there was a musical being put together, and that musical is set to have its world premiere later this month, the 25th and 26th of October. It's already sold out. So, before the event, tickets are all sold out over 2 days. It's a school presentation. So there are, children involved in the production itself, which is really, really cool. It's great to see the little ones of today being exposed to this topic. So I unfortunately aren't able to attend, but if there's anyone in the chat that hails from Melbourne that's going to be joining or attending that session, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. So feel free to let me know. Come back to the chat after the event and add your comments in. If you want to learn more about the Westall 66, the musical, you can actually there's a link in the description below on the actual musical itself. If I pull up, it's just basically event information. Unfortunately, it's now all sold out, but it gives you a little bit of information about the premise, the synopsis of the show. And I'll just read it for those that maybe aren't familiar with the Westall incident. So about St. Peter's Primary presents Westall 66, the musical, written and composed by Drew Lane, April 6, 1966. It's just another ordinary school day at Westall State School. Mr. Forrester stands in front of his class teaching the lessons of the day, when suddenly everything changes. Georgia, student, runs into class, panicked, excited, and fearful. The class is thrown into turmoil, and Mr. Forrester desperately tries to calm them down. He demands that Georgia explain the disturbance. There's flying saucers on the Oval. Join the students of St. Peter's Primary, East Bentley, as they deliver the world premiere production of Westall 66, the musical, based on the true story of an event that happened at the Melbourne suburb of Westall in 1996. The only question you need to ask yourself is, what do you believe? So obviously there's some creative license taken in such a production like this, but it's really great to see that it kind of follows, based on the events of that day of the 6th of April, 1966. So really, really interesting. Now, if you don't know a whole lot about the Westall incident and you would like to learn more, I had the good fortune some months back of meeting a number of primary witnesses at their annual reunion event at the Grange, which is about a kilometre south of the Westall High School, where essentially, summary for those of you that don't know about Westall incident, on the 6th of April, the morning of the 6th of April, 1966, several hundred children and a couple of teachers witnessed what a large number of them described to be an anomalous object in the shape of a flying saucer, between 1 and 3 flying saucers hovering in the skies above their school. And at least one of the objects moved off to a wooded area south of the school known as the Grange, and was alleged to have landed or hovered close to the ground. So earlier this year, I had, again, through a heads up that Shane Ryan gave me, I had an opportunity, being Melbourne-based, to attend that reunion event, and there was probably about 5 or 6 primary witnesses there at that event. They were all 12, 13, one of them 16 years of age on the day of the event, the 6th of April, 1966. And they were really, really very generous and giving of their time and prepared to go on camera. So I put together a documentary, a little bit over an hour. It's designed not as an exhaustive piece, really, just a companion piece to the great documentaries that are already out there. You know, Westall was covered in The Phenomenon by James Fox. Shane Ryan was involved in a documentary called Westall 66, a suburban UFO mystery, which is really, really good viewing if you haven't seen it. And it's been covered by Ross Coulthart and others as well. So I put together this little documentary really just to, give the primary witnesses an opportunity to recount and share their recollections from that day in a very unedited format. Just let them go, let them talk, and me ask some questions. So I was really fortunate I had the opportunity to meet with those folks on the day. So if you're interested to learn more about the Westall incident, please feel free to check that out. The link is in the description below. All right, so let's continue on. And one thing I'll just add about the Westall incident in the documentary that I put together, I submitted some FOIA requests, some Freedom of Information Act requests to try and see if I could secure the release of any documents pertaining to the Westall incident. Because one of the things that's really frustrating about the Westall incident is that, 57 years after it occurred, there is still no official position or a record from the Australian government at a federal, state, or local level about the Westall incident. There's never been an official explanation or record as to what transpired at Westall High School that day. 57 years later. Now, there is rumor, or I'd say it's more than rumor, it's probably a good sure bet that the then Department of Supply was charged with investigating the Westall incident and did a pretty thorough investigation. But lo and behold, as you would expect with this UFO topic and conversation, those records have never seen the light of day, or they've been destroyed, or they've vanished and they can't be located. So folks like Shane Ryan, and I know Bill Chalker and Keith Basterfield have done a lot of good work on the Westall incident. I thought I would go after some documentation pertaining to a prosaic explanation that was put forward for Westall. Keith Basterfield, another great researcher I've had the opportunity to learn from directly, he put forward that a possible hypothesis for the Westall incident was that, well, maybe it was a high-bow balloon, a high-altitude balloon, which there were launchings from the in Mildura in Victoria. And so I went after some Freedom of Information Act documents through the Freedom of Information Act for NASA, as well as the US Office of Naval Research, because documentation that Keith Basterfield was able to secure on HIBAL, this high altitude balloon project in Australia, which was designed to detect radioactive remnants in the air from nuclear tests in the Pacific region, kind of like sniffing the air for radioactive remnants. And one of the customers of HIBAL was the US Office of Naval Research. So I thought, well, why don't I go after, see if there's any documents pertaining to Project HIBAL in the possession of the Office of Naval Research. And this was a while back, so I've kind of forgotten to share this information with folks, but they came back and said, we have found no records responsive to your request. And obviously I couldn't provide them with specific contract numbers or project numbers because that information is not known at this point in time. But they did some searches on HIBAL, they used a couple of different keywords, and nothing came up. So whilst that's certainly not definitive, it kind of is another piece in the puzzle that can potentially put to bed that, well, NASA wasn't involved with the HIBAL project on the day, the 6th of April, 1966, nor was the Office of Naval Research. So it would add credence to maybe the idea that Westall was not a prosaic explanation, or was certainly, maybe that's the wrong way to say it, was not a HIBAL, was not a high altitude balloon. We still don't know 57 years after the event. We don't have an explanation for the Westall incident. So it remains one of the most unsolved, mysterious cold cases, I guess, of the modern era, which is it's a fascinating case, and hopefully there are more bits of information that get revealed over time. Moving on, so let's move on to the next piece I wanted to share with you. We come back to, again, this is talking about what's ahead, close to home. So let's have a look at an event that is scheduled to take place later this month. And that's our good friend Ross Coulthart, author of In Plain Sight. He's just released the updated, revised and updated edition. I've got a copy, haven't had a chance to read it yet because obviously trying to keep up to date with what's going on this topic is almost a full-time job. But it's now available. And so Ross had conducted a presentation and a Q&A event in Melbourne on the 12th of August. And I had the opportunity to attend and meet many other people that I've had a chance to engage and connect with on social media. So it was a great opportunity just to meet with people that you kind of had, you know the handle, or you've had engagement with them, but you've never been able to put their handle to a face and a voice. So it was really good. I was able to catch up with folks like Jimmy and others that I've connected on social media. So the really exciting news is that Ross is doing that same event later this month in Sydney. So for those of you that are Sydney-siders and you're interested to learn a little bit more about this event, have a look at, link is in the description below. So the event organizers, Close Encounters Australia, they are hosting this event. It's at the State Library of New South Wales, which is a pretty schmick event. No small lump of change to actually secure a venue like that. So Ross is actually speaking at this venue on the 28th of October, which is a Saturday, in the afternoon. And I've got family in Sydney, so I'm going up to see some family members as well as attend the event. So any of you in the chat that are from Sydney that I've had a chance to engage with, I look forward to seeing you there on the day and having a chance to meet with you. But if you need a bit of more of an excuse or preview as to why it's worthy of your consideration to attend, let me show you a very short little video package that I put together after the Melbourne event, so you can kind of get a sense as to what you would expect from this presentation and Q&A event from Ross in Sydney. So check it out. Have a look at that that event page. Links in the description. If you're keen to attend, I can tell you first and foremost, it's a really, really wonderful event because it's not just about David Grusch or In Plain Sight. It's Ross really providing some background and context information for how he got involved in the topic from his inception really through to where we are today. So if you have friends and family that are interested in the UAP UFO topic, but really don't have a lot of context for it in terms of background, it's actually a really good introduction for folks. I was actually more looking forward to the Q&A session because that's where there's a lot of questions that we curious folks that follow the topic probably more than your regular day-to-day public. I was keen to learn what those questions are. But yeah, if you're, and I'm not promoting this, I'm not getting a commission or any, there's no benefit for me to promote this event. I'm only promoting it because I really enjoyed it. I got a lot out of it. I'm I know Ross quite well now that I've had an opportunity to learn from him directly and engage him. So yeah, check it out. It's certainly, I found the Melbourne event to be a fun one. So if you're in Sydney, you're interested to check it out and get a good introduction on the topic, feel free. And yes, you've got some competition there, Anthony, on Close Encounters Australia, stealing your name. So Jimmy and I were both at the Melbourne event. It's great to learn that there were so many others that found the event to be of value and interesting, and an opportunity to thank Ross. I got a chance to meet him in person for the first time. We'd been engaged in correspondence for over a year, and I just wanted to use it as an opportunity to thank him for everything that he has done and continues to do to elevate the conversation on the topic. So really cool event if you're considering. No, Zane, I haven't actually. I've seen your DM. I haven't had a chance to respond to it as of yet, but I'm scheduled to catch up with Ross later this month, so I'll be sure to flick him or bring that up in discussion. So let's move away from the upcoming Sydney event with Ross. Actually, before I move away from Ross, one thing that is worthy to note is that for those that are in Melbourne, so Neil Mitchell he's just recently departed 3AW radio in Melbourne, and he had Ross on 3AW for a very short interview. It was probably about a month or back now, and on the 26th of September, Neil had Ross on his podcast, which he has titled Neil Mitchell Asks Why. It goes for I think a little bit over an hour. It's on Spotify as well as YouTube. Links in the description below if you want to check it out. Really, really cool. Westall gets a plug. He talks about Westall. Talks about your alleged crash retrievals in Australia, and obviously talking about the topic more broadly and what's happening in the United States. So definitely worth checking out if you haven't had an opportunity to look at it already. Now let me get my mouse back here. There we go. All right, so let's move away from what's ahead, and I'll just give you a bit of a quick update on some of the things that I'm doing on the FOIA front. For those of you that don't really know me or what my driving force has been on this topic, I've been trying to better understand why the Australian government has such a lack of appetite for this topic, particularly when our US O150's partner is taking it so incredibly seriously. Australia is usually lockstep with the United States on every other defense initiative, and we're about to spend $500 billion on these 3 Virginia-class nuclear attack subs. And so, I asked the question, why is Australia not following the US's lead on this topic, where we are in the game today? So it's still a question that I don't understand. And so one that is relevant to that is if I show you, so our good friend Senator Peter Whish-Wilson, who is the only Australian senator to date to raise an awareness on the UAP topic in an Australian context in Parliament. And there is what's called a Senate estimates. It's like a hearing that happens a couple of times a year where Australian senators get to ask those that are elected into positions of authority questions about government spending to ensure that taxpayer dollars are well spent, they're not wasted, they're going towards programs that are of value. Obviously, the Australian tax-paying public are getting return on their investment, so to speak, on initiatives, not just for defense, but across all portfolios of government. And so Senator Peter Whish-Wilson, he has now raised the issue of UAP in Australian context and asked the former and current Chief of Air Force on UAP on 3 occasions: the 27th of April of 27th of October of 2021, the 9th of November of 2022, and the 15th of February of this year. And there was one scheduled in May of this year, but he wasn't able to attend that Senate estimates due to other competing priorities in his home state of Tasmania. But he submitted what are called questions on notice. So senators can submit questions in writing that the department that they're directing the questions to have an obligation to answer. So because Senator Wish Wilson is a participating member for the Defence, Foreign Affairs and Trade Portfolio Committee, he submitted some questions to the Royal Australian Air Force. His questioning was directed to the Chief of Air Force, Air Marshal Mel Hupfield. And I won't go through this entire document, but the key one is, did Australia attend the recent Five Eyes meeting, which is the Five Eyes Forum on UAP that Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick of ARO announced at the NASA's public meeting on the UAP independent study team back in late May. I think it was the 31st of May. He revealed that to the world, that there was this inaugural Five Eyes meeting. And so Senator Wish Wilson asked a question: did Australia attend that meeting? If so, did Australia attend any briefing on UAP? And the stunning admission came back from the Australian Department of Defence that Australia did not attend a briefing on UAPs. Why? It's called, Senator Sean Kirk. I covered this in detail in my last live stream, but Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick referred to it as a Five Eyes forum. The US, Canada, UK, Australia, and New Zealand. So if Australia wasn't represented at that meeting, that forum, then it wasn't a Five Eyes forum. It was a four of Five Eyes, or three of the Five Eyes forum on UAP. So one of the questions that I would love to see Senator Wish Wilson continue to press the Australian Department of Defence on is, well, there's been an opportunity for Australia to be engaged on this topic and be briefed by our US ally. Why is Australia continuing to show no interest whatsoever on this topic? So when this document came out, the responses to this questions on notice, I submitted a Freedom of Information Act request and to the Australian Department of Defence, and I'll show you not just the Australian Department of Defence, but I also submitted. I'll just pull up the document here, because we know that NASA had its Five Eyes forum on UAP in May of this year. So, and when Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick announced at that NASA meeting that there was a Five Eyes forum, he revealed that Dan Evans, who's one of the members of the UAP independent study team, he was at that meeting. So I thought, oh, it'd be interesting to see what emails may have been exchanged between Dan Evans and others pertaining to the Five Eyes forum on UAP. And so I was able to secure, through the Freedom of Information Act request, the FOIA in the United States, some information. So on the 6th of June, the 5th of June, I submitted a request to NASA asking for copies of emails, including supporting file attachments, sent from to CC'd on behalf of Dr. Daniel Evans, Assistant Deputy Associate Administrator for Research, for the period of 1 April to the 31st of May. That's the window that we know that the Five Eyes Forum on UAP took place. We actually know it was in May. That contain any of the following keywords: Five Eyes, FVEY, which is the acronym for Five Eyes Forum, as well as all meeting agendas, attendee list, talking points, and meeting documents. So they came back to me on the 28th of August. This is well before NASA had revealed the identity of its director of UAP studies, Mr. Mark McInerney, however you pronounce it. And these chain of emails, you can see that in an email to from Mark McInerney to, we don't know who it's to, I'm presuming it's Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, we have reference of Mark McInerney. And this is well and truly before NASA announced that he was going to be the director of UAP research. So essentially this email chain suggests that Mark McInerney is probably the way to do it, that both he and Dr. Dan Evans were scheduled to attend the Five Eyes Forum on UAP. So I've subsequently gone after emails for specifically pertaining to Mark McInerney and any prepared remarks or verbal statements that he and Dan Evans made at the Five Eyes Forum, just to see if it reveals a little bit more information about that event, because we know so little about it, and we know Australia is telling us that they didn't attend. But what I found interesting in this document is Dan Evans, in a response to an email, presumably to Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, said, "I'm not expected to speak, am I? Hope not. I'm slammed with our major 31 May meeting coming up." So that was obviously the NASA's public meeting that it held, where Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick revealed the Five Eyes Forum. So the response, obviously, we don't know. It's redacted, obviously, from Department of Defense, USD, INS. Obviously, presuming Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick said, "Yes, Dan, can you please say a few words?" And he was like, "Yes, I can say a few words for sure." So if those were prepared remarks, I'd like to know what they were. So, who knows if that's going to reveal any fruit, but it's when there's a dangling carrot, whenever I see a lead that may help uncover a bit more information about maybe the extent of Australia's involvement or continued that lack thereof on the topic, it's worth pursuing. So watch this space. More obviously to keep you updated on that front. I'm going to have some time at the end just to bring up some comments and questions that you have, because I know quite a few have come through as we go. For those that are time poor, I just want to be able to get through these slides relatively quickly so we can spend some time at the back end of the session. So moving away from FOIA, obviously, October surprise. Now, I thought I would just label it as October surprise, which is typically what is an October surprise. It's typically an event. I had it written down here as to what it is specifically. Let me hear. There we go. So what is an October surprise? In politics speak, it's an unexpected political event or revelation in the month before typically a presidential election, especially one that seems intended to influence the outcome. So whilst this is not really an October surprise in a presidential sense, it is still potentially an October surprise. And so let me tell you why. Something very significant happened only just this week. The US Speaker of the House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy, was ousted from his position. He was voted out. He was formally removed from the Speaker of the House. And this is the moment that occurred. So let me show you this clip. It's from C-SPAN, just so you can see. I thought it was just an interesting way that the information was conveyed. So watch it through to the end, and it will kind of lead into the talking point that I've got on why this could potentially be an October surprise.
On this vote, the yeas are 216, the nays are 210. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The office of Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
Pursuant to Clause 8B3 of Rule 1, I will now act as Speaker pro tem. The Chair will inform the members of the House the following. The office of the Speaker was rendered vacant pursuant to the adoption of House Resolution 757. Upon a vacancy in the office of Speaker, Clause 8B3 of Rule 1 provides that the next member on a list submitted by the Speaker, pursuant to the rule, acts as Speaker pro tem until the election of a new Speaker, and bestows the authorities of the office of Speaker upon the Speaker pro tem to the extent necessary and appropriate to that end. In the opinion of the Chair, prior to proceeding to the election of a Speaker, it would be prudent to first recess for the relative caucus and conferences to meet and discuss the path forward. Accordingly, pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess subject to the call of the Chair.
You can see how pipped he was at the end there by the gavel smash that he made. So obviously he wasn't too happy, but that's significant. So the Speaker of the House is now it's vacant. There will be an election to determine who will replace Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House. So why is that significant? Because 8 Republicans. Now, I don't talk a lot about US politics on the show, obviously, but I think it's important to the broader UAP conversation. 8 Republicans broke rank from their party and voted to have Kevin McCarthy removed as the Speaker. And who was that? Who were those folks that voted to have him removed? So of the 8 people, of the 8 Republicans that voted to have Kevin McCarthy removed as Speaker of the House, 4 of them were these folks. Now, do you recognize these faces? Let me go from left to right. We have Matt Gaetz of Florida, Nancy Mace of South Carolina, Tim Burchett of Tennessee, and Andy Biggs of Arizona. Why are they significant? Because they were all in attendance at the House Oversight Committee on UAP back in July, where David Grusch, Ryan Graves, and David Fravor gave testimony. Now, that's potentially significant because you've got these guys that are all engaged, part of the UAP caucus, at least 3 of the 4 of them are. I believe, well, at least we know Matt Gaetz and Tim Burchett are. I could be mistaken on Nancy Mason and Andy Biggs. But it's significant because 4 of the 8 Republicans that voted to have Kevin McCarthy removed are heavily engaged on the UAP topic and are fighting for greater transparency on the topic. So, and what I find interesting is that we know that Tim Burchett had gone to, I think it was James Comer, and asked for a select committee on UAP, where the select committee would potentially have subpoena power and be able to demand or order people to come and testify. And that request was shut down by the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. So the fact that we now have no speaker and there's going to be a new speaker elected, it begs the question, is that new speaker that gets elected, are they going to be UAP friendly? Are they potentially going to be an advocate for greater transparency on the UAP topic? And so that was, I was really interested to learn, well, what are the implications of a new speaker being elected? So I thought, well, why not have a crack and ask that question to Representative Tim Burchett and Representative Anna Paulina Luna, who are both on the House Oversight Committee and have been the champions behind the UAP conversation thus far for greater transparency. So following today's historic removal of the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, Tim Burchett and Rep. Luna, could you kindly comment on the potential implications for the House Oversight Committee's ongoing efforts to secure greater transparency on the UAP issue? Thank you. Now, obviously, I didn't expect to receive any response, and nor did I. But this is where the October surprise comes into play, because I submitted that tweet on the 4th, and what happened 2 days later? Representative Jared Moskowitz, who was also at the UAP hearing in July. Representative Anna Paulina, now I think he might have got the, I don't know if he used the right handle there, but directed at Anna Paulina Luna and Tim Burchett. To my UAP colleagues, I know when you are picking a speaker, you will be asking for your UAP select committee. And to that, Anna Paulina Luna, she obviously has 2 different accounts. We're on it. So I think that there is potentially a revival in the works for a possible select committee on UAP if Tim Burchett and Anna Paulina Luna have anything to do it. Those that are part of the UAP caucus that are demanding greater transparency on this topic, I think they're in our corner because we want greater clarity and transparency. It is not yet dead and buried that a select committee on UAP has died completely. There might be an opportunity for it to be resurrected. So watch this space. I just found that to be some really interesting, a very interesting revelation this week with the removal of Kevin McCarthy as the Speaker of the House. Now, what could be a potential other UAP October surprise? So if we go to Later this month, we have the Senate Estimates Committee hearing for Foreign Affairs, Defense, and Trade. So I don't know which day it is going to be held. It could be the 25th of October or it could be the 26th. So you can bet your bottom dollar that Senator Peter Whish-Wilson will be attending that hearing as a participating member, and will probably more than likely have a decent number of questions. He'll probably get around about between 8 to 10 minutes to ask questions of who he chooses, and to date it's been the Chief of Air Force. But I suspect there'll be some questions that he may want to ask of defense leadership. I know a question that I want to ask is, well, if Australia did not attend a United States briefing on UAPs, and that's relating specifically to the Five Eyes Forum on UAP that Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick of ARO held in May, well, why didn't Australia attend? Why was there no Australian Department of Defense representation at that Five Eyes Forum, when we know, thanks to the good reporting of Daniel Otis out of Canada and Defence Scoop, that the New Zealand Defence Force was represented, and Colin doing some great work at UAP Aotearoa to kind of press those in New Zealand for answers. And we know that the Canadian Armed Forces were also represented. So you have defense representation from Canada and New Zealand, and obviously ARO was represented along with NASA, but you have absolutely nothing coming out of the UK. They're being mum on the topic, and you've got Australia that's saying we didn't attend at all. So what confuses me is, how is the Department of Defense able to definitively make that statement that Australia did not attend a United States briefing on UAP? Are they speaking just for the Australian Department of Defense? Or if we take that statement as it's written, are they speaking for Australia more broadly? I suspect, and this is just a suspicion, but I suspect there was some representation from Australia, but it was from the intelligence services, perhaps the Australian Signals Directorate, because the Five Eyes Alliance and Intelligence Alliance, it's all about sharing signals intelligence. And the Australian Signals Directorate sounds like the appropriate candidate to attend such a meeting, such a forum, a briefing on UAP. But again, we need a little bit more clarity from the Australian Department of Defence, because their statement is incredibly ambiguous. And I have a good source who I won't name out of his respect for request for privacy, but there's some comments that he provided me with. He said, the Australian government representative who responded to Senator Whish-Wilson's question on notice is quite possibly being untruthful when they say there was no representation from Australia at that meeting. There are embedded Australians in all the main facilities in the United States intelligence community. If no one from Australia attended this meeting, it would have caused a serious international incident within the Five Eyes second party partners. You can't just say we're not interested in attending a forum that is designed for Five Eyes partners. That's not how it works. For it to be called a Five Eyes meeting, all member nations, keyword being all member nations, must be present. We're all in this together, and non-attendance would imply we're not interested in the security implications of the subject matter. So, is the Australian Department of Defence being truthful on that admission, that statement it made that Australia did not attend the United States briefing on UAPs? That is a question I would love to get some greater clarity on, and hopefully one that Senator Whish-Wilson asked at the Senate estimates hearing later this month. So I sound like a bit of a broken record when I say this, but if you feel so inclined, if you want your senators, members of parliament, those that you elect into positions of leadership to take this topic more seriously and follow Senator Whish-Wilson's lead on this topic, contact your senator and member of parliament. The link to this page is in the description below. So I know I've said this time and time again, but you can contact your senator, your member of parliament. It's really, really easy to do. If you just pull up the senator that is applicable to your home location, or you can reach out to multiple. If I wanted to reach out to, let's say, who's a good example? We'll use Senator Andrew Bragg. If I was a Lib, or if I was living in New South Wales, I can email, I can connect with Senator Andrew Bragg on Facebook, or I can send a tweet to him. If I click on his name, it will bring up his electorate, and I can get postal information. So there is absolutely nothing stopping you from engaging your elected representatives on this topic and highlight to them that you want them to take it seriously as well, and follow Senator Wish Wilson's lead and ask these sorts of questions of defense leadership. Why is Australia, a Five Eyes partner and AUKUS partner, not attending a United States-led briefing on UAP, which the United States Department of Defense has determined is a national security threat and safety of flight risk? So I would implore you to consider reaching out to your elected representatives in the lead up to the Senate estimates hearing later this month. And it doesn't just have to be your Senate or MP. If you want to engage the legacy news media, those that have been not exercising their due diligence on the UAP topic and taking it seriously, feel free to reach out to them as well. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Following the Ross Coulthart Q&A event in Melbourne in August, a number of us that attended that event took it upon ourselves, collectively and strategically. We thought, well, you know what, let's engage the legacy media following Ross's recommendation at the Q&A event that if you take this topic seriously, tell the media that you want them to take it seriously as well. And so that's what a number of us did. And a number of us got responses. These are just 3 examples of many, many more. I know Jimmy, myself, and others, we reached out to the chair, the current chair until I think March of next year, Ida Buttrose, who's actually interestingly covered the UFO topic before. She used to sit on the panel of, Channel 10's The Studio or something in the morning. And when they had James Fox on to discuss Westall as part of the phenomenon when he was doing the documentary, Ida Buttrose was asking him questions about Westall. And so Ida Buttrose is the chair of the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. And so I and a number of my colleagues in this space that take this topic seriously, we reached out to Ida Buttrose and we asked some serious questions and demanded that the ABC take the topic seriously and exercise their due diligence when reporting on it. Because the ABC has only done 4 digital articles in the last 3 years. Compare that to, say, News Nation or other outlets in the United States that are reporting on this far more frequently. They obviously did. Media Watch did a hit piece on Ross Coulthart, trying to obviously paint him in a negative light, which, to Ross's credit, he did a wonderful response letter to Media Watch, which they included on their website. So the one thing that's frustrating about these response letters is they're identical. You can see they're exactly the same. They're a carbon copy and paste response, which is frustrating, to be expected, but frustrating that the time, energy, and effort that I and my friends and colleagues invested to ask some serious questions and raise our concerns, it was treated with just blanket copy and paste response. We've passed your correspondence on to the managing director of the ABC to consider it for future programming, which is completely unsatisfactory. But again, strength in numbers. If more of us do this sort of stuff and reach out to the legacy media, our elected representatives, it can hopefully start to help shift the conversation at home and get people, the media and government talking about it more frequently than it has in the past. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover off on for you on that front. We do know that later this month, just to kind of give you a quick update, back in June, I had created a formal petition, which I submitted to the Australian House of Representatives, requesting, and I've covered this in previous sessions, so my apologies if it's a bit boring for folks that know about it, but I put forward a application requesting for a formal review of unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP, put it to the House of Representatives, and there's a link in the description below. If it's not for this, I'll put it in, so if you want to read it, you can. 759 Australians, including myself, signed the e-petition, digitally signed it. It closed on the 21st of June of this year. It was formally accepted by the House of Representatives. It was tabled for discussion. It was acknowledged. And so now the Minister for Defence, Richard Marles has an obligation to provide a formal response within 90 days. So by the end of this month, end of October, we should have a formal response to that petition. So that's why I say, there's potentially some October surprises in store, not just in the US with the new House of Representatives to be elected. Are they going to be UAP friendly? Will it help secure a select committee on UAP? We've got potentially some pretty pertinent questions that could be asked by Senator Wish Wilson at the Senate estimates hearing later this month, and we're expecting a response from the Minister of Defense on the petition to the House of Representatives. So, plenty of things to come and talk about next month. So that's pretty much most of what I wanted to cover in today's show. There's obviously a couple of things just at the back end here, which is just a bit of fun. This is obviously a milestone show, so I want to be able to share with you some pretty, for me anyway, some pretty exciting announcements. I'm pleased to obviously let you know that. By the way, I've never done this for money. Those that think I'm trying to grift the community and make $1 out of this topic, that's never been my motivation and driving force. But continuing to research this topic and do these live streams and these shows, there are expenses. It costs money to do it. Live stream, license fees, monthly subscription fees for StreamYard, which I'm using today, for Podbean, which is a podcasting streaming service. They host your podcasts. You've got Google Drive costs for storage. You've got equipment like these microphones and so on. So it doesn't come cheap. So I followed the lead of some of my friends that I follow on this topic, and they have done the same sort of thing. And I thought, well, why not do something that's a bit of fun that could maybe help offset some of the costs associated with continuing to do research on this topic and bring these sort of updates to you. So I'm really pleased to let you know that there is now an official merch store for the Unexplained Rundown. And I've got what is a bit of another October surprise, in that I can now reveal, I got this in the mail just this week, what's in the bag. Now, I suspect Jimmy will already know what this is, but I was keen to order some of the apparel the designs that I've put up already on the official merch store. And here is the official unbagging. I've got my very own Unexplained Rundown t-shirt that I can wear proudly when I'm out and about at events. So when I wear it, maybe folks will know who I am, and they'll come up and want to start a conversation. So really, really excited to introduce the merch store. It's not, just so you know, the amount of money that comes back from each sale is about $1 to $2. So it's not significant. If I sell 1,000 pieces of apparel, I'll maybe make what's that, $100. So it's not something that I'm doing to make money out of. I'm doing it for fun and to offset some of the costs associated with doing some of the live streams. So that is to give you to acknowledge the launching of the merch store. Let me show this brief little video put together so you can get a bit of a taste, a flavor for just the fun that is intended with the merch store. So enjoy. The Unexplained Rundown is pleased to partner with tpublic.com and bring you some fun and fantastical apparel and accessories that are truly out of this world. If you're keen to support the show and see it grow, be sure to check out some of the cool designs in the merch store and grab yourself a bargain. Use the link in the description below. There you go. So there's the promo for the merch store, folks. And if you're keen to check out the merch store, the link is in the description below. This is the TeePublic website. Bit of fun. I've come up with some creative ideas. when I lived in LA, for those of you that have been to LA, if ever you've walked along Venice Boulevard, I should say Venice Beach more accurately, there are some of those souvenir stores on the beachfront, and they sell some funny T-shirts. And I thought, I haven't seen anything that's entertaining and fun on this topic apparel-wise, so I thought I'd put together some ideas. This is officially acknowledged, endorsed by the man himself, Kurt Jaimungal of Theory of Everything. So tic-tac-toe, just a bit of a fun design. So you can have a look at the designs that are in the merch store. My favorite, might want to be careful where you wear it though. Unidentified effing obsession, which is so true for many of us on this topic. So just some fun designs. If you want to support the show and see it grow, and you want something to tangible to take home, you got some fun designs that you can have a look at. It's not just t-shirts. There's accessories as well, like phone cases and tote bags and pillowcases and these sorts of things. So just some fun designs. Feel free to have a look, check them out if you're interested. I've got myself a coffee mug that is on its way from the US. So a lot of the stuff comes from Australia, so it keeps the shipping costs down. But there are a couple of accessories that do come from the US though. The other bit of exciting news I wanted to share with you is that, again, to help offset some of the operating and production costs that are associated with doing these sort of live streams and podcasts, pleased to let you know that the Unexplained Rundown is now available for Patreon membership. So if you are keen to follow the show above and beyond, like, share, subscribe, you want to make a small financial contribution to the show to help see it grow and support the day-to-day operation, feel free to check out Patreon. You can now look at a couple of different membership options, and I'll show you a few on screen so you've got a sense. Obviously not big bucks, just a couple of dollars if you're interested in sparing it to support the show. Let me pull it up so you can see it on screen. Link is in the description below, obviously. Patreon is, for those of you that don't know what it is, it's kind of like a monthly membership fee where you receive some out-of-this-world perks, as I like to refer them. I've just put together 3 basic membership tiers. She'll be right, mate. If you can spare $2 a month, there's a couple of perks that you'll receive to acknowledge your contribution to the ongoing support and growth of the show. Bit of a shout out on the show, Patreon community live chat. If you want to engage with me directly and those that follow the show and want to become Patreon members, there is a live chat functionality within the Patreon app, which you can get on your smartphone or tablet. If you're wanting a little bit more of an investment, you little ripper, obviously, $2 to $5 a month. There is the same sort of things, but you get a free sticker from the merch store of your choice. And if you want to be a little bit more generous in your financial contribution, you can cancel obviously at any point in time. $10 a month, and there are some additional merchandise that can be provided to you, magnet or a sticker. The cost involved in obviously ordering this stuff, the shipping fees make it a little bit prohibitive to do apparel. So it's only kind of like small token items like stickers and magnets and those sorts of things. So just for your consideration, you certainly don't have to become a Patreon member. It's only if you're interested to show your support above and beyond, like, share, and subscribe, which is greatly appreciated. If you don't want to join Patreon, but you're a fan of, say, YouTube, well, YouTube, you can also join the Unexplained Rundown on YouTube, and you have the ability to join the channel via a similar sort of financial contribution. $3 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, the same sort of perks, but you get some emojis that you can use when you're commenting in the live chat and so on. So feel free to have a look at those if you're interested. I'm not suggesting this is the only way you can support the show, but I know a couple of have asked me when I've had conversations with them, what can I do to support the growth and continued work that the show that I do on the show. So that's over to you to have a think about. I will leave you with that. I want to give folks an opportunity to have their questions answered. So let me go through a couple that have come through in the chat. Let's just see what we've got here. Okay, so Jimmy comments on the Soul Foundation. Yep, awesome lineup that they have in terms of speakers. It does look very cool. It'll be interesting to see, again, what comes out of that conference. Zane states, didn't Ross remark he may have the person doing the incident report? I suspect that pertains to the crash retrieval. I know that comment's a bit earlier in the show there, Zane, so feel free to add some context if you wish. Yes, very true, Jimmy. The official response for Westall incident, no official response to date, is very, very frustrating. Colin, UAP out era. Talking of Ross Coulthart, he dropped a big hint about craft recovery by Australian troops in a country close to Australia. I wonder where he means. I think he dropped that in the Neil Mitchell Ask Why podcast, if I'm correct. Yeah, interesting. He didn't say Australia, but he said close to Australia. So I'm wondering if it's in the Indo-Pacific or if it's Southeast Asia region. Who knows? It'd be very, very interesting to learn a bit more about that. I mean, you think, again, the work that Bill Chalker has done on alleged crash retrievals in Australia, there's many, many of them. Australia is such a big place that it wouldn't be surprising that you have either top secret technology that's being tested out in the desert, or if there is something that crashes. And we know that things have crashed in the past. You had Project Moondust or Operation Moondust in the 50s and 60s, where there were, and Ross has talked about this only a day or two ago, that you had crash retrieval teams that were tasked to recover your downed satellites or your space debris that might have been Russian or Chinese technology in the 50s and 60s. And that's what, the military installations in Australia. You have Woomera in South Australia. You got Maralinga, where they tested 5, the British were permitted to test 5 nuclear atomic tests. You've got the Harold E. Holt base in Western Australia. You've got the famous Pine Gap in smack bang in the middle of the country. So, it wouldn't be surprising. And Pine Gap is obviously a US Australia a joint base. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility that you have some pretty top secret tech that gets tested out in the desert. And if there are crashes of prosaic technology that is top secret, that it's going to be retrieved. But even if there is something that is a bit more exotic, that is unknown, be retrieved as well. Let's just have a look at some of the other chats. Zane adds on to Colin's comments. I missed that part. I saw him remark that Aussie troops have been retained for crash retrieval, but I missed him saying country close to Australia. Yeah, he didn't name the country, but he said close to Australia. I wonder, Colin, could it be New Zealand? You never know. I'll see if I can find that comment, Zane. It was in a podcast that he did. I think, was it on? It may have been that Neil Mitchell Ask Why podcast. It was only a recent one, and that's one of the most recent ones that Ross has done. Or could it have even been on Need to Know? It may have even been on Need to Know. Jimmy says possibly Papua New Guinea. Again, interesting. Jimmy actually does a lot of work going through a lot of the historical documents. He's gone through he sends me tons of them, which I don't have time to read all of them, but you find some pretty interesting stuff. And I'm sure, Jimmy, you'd agree. There's some really interesting historical stuff in the National Archives of Australia, cases from, decades past, not just 50s and 60s, but more recent stuff in the 80s as well. Let's have a look at some of the other comments that have come through. Jeff Bow asked, where can I buy tickets for Ross's Sydney talk? Just check out the link in the description below, Jeff. I've added into the show notes, so you'll see it pretty pretty self-explanatory. Just click on the link and you'll get some information on tickets and event information. Quick sale system by Mary. Hi there from Canary Islands, Spain. Fantastic for you to join from abroad. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your, I imagine, your evening to join today's show. I really appreciate it. Jeff adds, I think the most efficient way to control the information flow on UAPs is to allow one nation, the USA, to lead on it, whilst other nations maintain the status quo of previous years. Yeah, I think you're right. I think, countries are certainly following. I mean, as pretty much has always been the way, the rest of the world waits for the US to take lead on any big initiative, and I don't think UAP is any different. But what is odd, though, is that you do have some nations that are advocates for the UAP topic. Obviously, Canada. We don't hear a lot out of Canada, but you have Larry Maguire, who has been the champion of UAP discussion in Canada, even though the Canadian Ministry for Defence hasn't really been all that transparent on the topic. You do have Canada taking it seriously as a safety of flight risk. You have France has obviously done some pretty comprehensive research. I think it was called the Kameka report or something like that in the decades past. So obviously you've got Brazil. You have the recent Mexico hearing, which kind of turned into a bit of a debacle with alleged alien bodies being paraded around on stage. But I think a lot of the other stuff that was covered in that hearing was important. Ryan Graves, even though he's caught off guard and he didn't know that there was going to be such a stunt pulled, I think his intentions were right, and that he was really trying to elevate the conversation on UAP and the safety of flight risks that they pose. So there's a number of countries that are, supporting, the conversation on this topic. Anthony, you raise a good point. Encounters Down Under podcast, maybe a different Aussie department went to the Five Eyes forum on UAP and not the actual Defence Department. I suspect that might be the case. And I mentioned that before, the Australian Signals Directorate. But again, it begs a question, why then did the Australian Department of Defence make such a definitive admission that, and use the word Australia did not attend the United States briefing on UAPs? Why not say Defence, meaning Australian Department of Defence? Defence did not attend a briefing on UAP. The Air Force have told us that the Air Force didn't attend the Five Eyes Forum on UAP, because I'd asked them. I'd submitted a correspondence to the Minister for Defence, Richard Marles, asking the question. This was immediately after the revelation of the Five Eyes Forum on UAP by Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. I asked the Minister of Defence, did Australia attend Five Eyes Forum on UAP? And the Royal Australian Air Force, head of Air Force capability, responded to me with a letter in writing. The reason why they typically respond is they're kind of leading the charge on UAP related correspondence, because the Royal Australian Air Force has had a long history on the topic of UAP. They were responsible for, along with the Department of Supply, investigating UAP, what they referred to back in the day as unusual aerial sightings, UAS, from as early as the back in the early 50s. So Australia has almost as long as a history with the UAP UFO topic as the United States does. In the years following Roswell, and then if you had the Cold War and the space race, Australia was right up there investigating UAP. And then in 1996, they just wiped their hands and said, no, nothing more to see here. We don't find any compelling or other other scientific reason to continue to devote resources to the ongoing investigation of UAP. That was in 1996 when they stopped investigating UAP. Look at how much has changed and how different the world is now pertaining to UAP in 2023. And yet the Australian Department of Defence has not acknowledged the UAP topic, has not acknowledged that it needs to formally review its position on UAP. despite not having investigated the topic since 1996, despite not having seen any of the classified data housed within the classified reports provided to US Congress. We know that because the Australian Department of Defense has told us. It hasn't sought any briefings from the US. It hasn't had any engagement from the US. This is all prior to the Five Eyes Forum on UAP. So why they continue to bury their head in the sand on this topic, it just completely boggles the mind. Awaiting Aliens, great to see you. Excellent research, Grant. Thank you for your comments and for joining. I really appreciate it. Jimmy, totally unnecessary, my friend. Super sticker, $5. Thank you, my friend, for your continued support and friendship. I really appreciate everything that you do to inspire and motivate me and keep me up to date with some of the other great podcasts out there that I'm not aware of. So you're always sharing some good tips with me. UAP Aotearoa Luna has stated that the new speaker will be pressed for a new select committee. Yeah. So really exciting, potential October surprise. Will we know if there is a new speaker elected before the end of the month? Jimmy's comments, Australia needs your channel, Grant. It's the only real one that is engaging the topic within Australia for the Australian populace. Keep up the fantastic work. Thank you, my friend. Yeah, I haven't actually come across any other podcasts or live streams that cover this topic from this kind of Australian perspective, trying to engage government, media, find out why Australia is so reluctant to take this topic seriously. So I hope it does. I mean, I'm pleased that I've been able to bring some content that people find interesting and of value, but hopefully over time you start to see more channels like mine pop up, because the more people that can be engaging in these sort of conversations and raising the topic, I think only helps the conversation rather than just limits it with just one person like myself asking the questions. I have no qualms with other people talking about the topic the same way I am. I think it actually helps the conversation. Second that, Jimmy, well said from UAP Aotearoa, and Zane said that as well. Yeah, good point of clarification. UAP Aotearoa, the New Zealand representative, was a Washington-based defense. So we know that Australia has the Australian Defence Attaché and Air Attaché based in Washington, D.C., as adjoined to the Australian Embassy in Washington, D.C. So I imagine it's probably a similar setup for New Zealand. Jimmy says, not only was the response to my letter to the ABC terrible, they got my first name wrong on the response letter. True. How embarrassing. I mean, they couldn't even address Jimmy right in the letter. They called him, was it Mr. Watson, I think, which was correspondence from someone completely different. So, it just shows you. I mean, if the ABC is getting that information wrong, what else are they getting wrong? Do your due diligence, particularly when it's from the chair of the ABC. I mean, far out. You wouldn't expect those sort of mistakes. And Jimmy, I've never been known as Mr. Watson. True. Thank you. Waiting Aliens merch is always a good idea. Anthony, congratulations to you. 250. It doesn't. You just got to start small. I mean, I consider my channel a small one, but I know that you have. Sorry, that's for Colin, I should say. You've passed 250 followers today on X. Well done, my friend. We all start small. Let's have a look at some of the other comments that have come through. And for those of you that are keen to learn what is happening across the pond in New Zealand, I'll use this as an opportunity to give you a bit of a shout out there, Colin. So I've engaged Colin at UAP Aotearoa a number of times on comparable FOIA-related quests that he can work on in New Zealand. So he's doing some good work over there across the pond. If you're keen to follow and support his work, feel free, Colin, to just pop your X handle in the comments, or if you're putting any content out there on YouTube, feel free to put that in. I'll be happy to highlight it on the screen. Let's have a look else. Zane asks, why did the government tell us about the shoot downs at all? It's total bull that they can't find the debris, since they know exactly where they were shot down, unless totally obliterated. It's a puzzling one, isn't it? I mean, you think that they put out there that there was such a commitment for them to retrieve debris, and then all of a sudden we don't hear anything else on it. They were so quick to retrieve the debris of the Chinese spy balloon and make sure they had some great promo shots, some good marketing shots that they could splash out to the world and the media of the debris being recovered from the water. But you don't hear anything about the other 3 unidentified aerial objects that were shot down. I know that Ross is actually doing, I saw a tweet that he put out earlier today. Ross is doing an interview with News Nation, and I think he's been doing some work, his due diligence behind the scenes, to bring more information about those February shootdowns. So do keep a lookout on, for Ross's X account. You'll obviously see him post any updates when he's appearing on News Nation, because I think he's in a pretty privileged position where he can get some information from sources that can be shared on the likes of News Nation without revealing sources and methods and those sorts of things. So kudos to Ross for everything that he does to try and uncover more information about why the US government, POTUS, the President of the United States, who, after the Chinese spy balloon and the shootdowns, he, told the world that he will not hesitate to shoot down anything in the skies that present a security or safety of flight risk. And well, what about, providing a little bit more transparency to the American public as well as the rest of the world? We want to know more about those particular incidences, even if they were just prosaic, because the US Department of Defense will so quickly put out footage of the U-2 Dragon Lady taking a photo from the cockpit of the Chinese spy balloon, and they'll happily and quickly put out MQ-9 Reaper drone footage of Russian fighters intercepting and trying to douse drones with fuel, but they won't release anything pertaining to these 3 unidentified aerial objects that the US Air Force shot down, even if they're prosaic. Why would you not release that information? I suspect it's potential embarrassment. The US government, the Biden government doesn't want to put flames on the already embarrassment that was placed on the US Department of Defense for not picking up those objects sooner. So I think they're just trying to pivot and just move on to other things that will make people forget about. We won't forget. We're not going to forget about those 3 unidentified aerial objects, obviously, and that's why I say great that folks like Ross is continuing to press and get answers on those incidents. Zane's follow-up comments: the pilots would definitely know exactly what they shot. Why are they all silenced? It's an interesting. I would imagine that they've all been, if they were to come forward and speak, they'd be breaking some oath, or if they had to sign a non-disclosure agreement or some form of, if it was considered classified information, they came forward, they risk then prison time if they reveal classified information. Waiting aliens, Zane, yep, they probably did, not just telling us. Very true. You did find the links for the Ross Coulthart Sydney show, Jeff. If you're there, look forward to saying good day if you're at the event. Didn't Avi Loeb get his samples from New Guinea? Yeah, that's right. So the expedition that he made was to off Papua New Guinea. So we've obviously got some crash. I mean, look, what is the Galileo project doing? It's a crash retrieval team, isn't it? Essentially, if it was prosaic meteorite, then they're still retrieving a meteorite that crashed into the ocean. So the idea that crash retrieval teams are so fantastical, I think, is nonsense. Drew, so great to see you, my friend. Thank you for your kind words. Drew is the mastermind behind the Westall 66, the musical. So again, those of you that are joining the show late, feel free to have a look at the link in the description below. It's a world premiere that's happening later this month, 25th and 26th, now sold out, which is unfortunate for those folks that haven't had a chance to buy their ticket. But hopefully, and I'm sure Drew will be able to put it out on social media, that if it is, if the world premiere on those 2 dates is a stunning success, maybe they'll be able to put out some more dates going forward, or even make it a traveling show. You never know. And on that note, Drew, not required, my friend. Thank you so much for your generous donation. I truly appreciate it. Big thanks to you, Grant, for spreading the word about Westall 66, the musical. Happy to do it. Having now a connection to the Westall incident and having met a small number of the primary witnesses, I'm happy to do anything that can support, making more, getting the word out and making more people aware of the history of the Westall incident. We're now sold out, which is wonderful. While the cast is young, they've loved working on the show and discovering more about the story. I think it's truly wonderful. I'd love to, if you plan to do future shows, please do let me know in social media. I would love to attend with my family. As my little girl, she's 3.5. I'm sure she would enjoy the sights and sounds, and anything that's singing and dancing related. She's obsessed with it. I support your sentiment there, indeed, Colin. Good for you, Drew. Very well deserved. So I think you've got a lot of people supporting and rooting for you, Drew. That it's a stunning success later this month. So that's pretty much everything from today's show, folks. I really appreciate, as I said, you taking some time out of your Saturday or your Friday evening if you're across the pond. Thanks as always for your support. Again, if you don't want to support the show financially, it goes a long way just to give it a like, share, subscribe. It certainly helps continue to drive me to search for answers and hopefully help this channel grow. So thank you again for your time. I will leave you with this as we wrap out, and look forward to seeing you on a future episode of the Unexplained Rundown. So thanks again.
If you have enjoyed this episode of the Unexplained Rundown, please consider giving it a thumbs up, sharing with your friends, family, colleagues, and social network, as well as subscribing to the channel. And if you'd like to be notified whenever the Unexplained Rundown goes live, premieres, or posts a new video, be sure to ring that cowbell.